Everyone, Brett here, Lionheart84, and as I start this video, I can't believe it's actually starting to spit with rain, which is very frustrating. It's the 1st of May, Sunday, which means it's time to do the first monthly garden tour of the year. Well, that's the idea, but of course now it's starting to spit with rain. It might sort of disturb things a little bit, but I just thought I'd start the video and say hello, and to people who don't really look at my channel or haven't been members for long, what I try and do is once a month through the summer months, as close to the start of the month as possible, I like to try and do a quick walk around the garden and just look at what's happening, what's starting the growth, what's flowering, if any fruits are setting, just so people can see some of the plants I've got and what sort of state they're in. And I try and do it on the first Sunday of the month, as close to the beginning of the month as possible, and it's for my interest as well, because it means that I can obviously document later in the year or in subsequent years how the plants have developed or grown since either previous years or at the beginning of the season. So without much more ado, as it's spitting with rain and I don't particularly want to get soaking wet, I'll flip the camera around and we'll see if we can have a quick walk around for 10 minutes before the rain comes too heavily. I'll see you in a second. So welcome to the garden. We'll flip round as quickly as possible. We'll start with the Crimson Bonfire. Some of these plants will of course have been featured in standalone videos, but I'll try and run over them very quickly in this video as well. This is my Crimson Bonfire peach. Has set about half a dozen fruits this year. Got a little bit of peach leaf curl because I didn't spray it at the right time, but I should try and get that correct next year. So running around very quickly, we've got a Daphne here that normally flowers most of the year, but I think I could do with cutting it back because it's not flowering at the moment. I do have ornamental plants as well as fruiting one. That's my Butilon there. Needs cutting back. It's not really growing very well at the moment. I've got a variegated Chilean Guava here. It's Ugly Molyneux, and that's Flambeau. Should be flowering in about a month's time, all being well, and that looks like it needs a bit of a trim back as well. In fact, a lot of the stuff needs maintenance. Growing on the fence there is a Kiwi Berry that was originally bought as the self-fertile Issai. Had a few flowers last year and they're clearly not self-fertile, and apparently the red leaf stems give it away as not being Issai because Issai has green leaf stems. So it's obviously another variety. It does seem to have female flowers on it. Got frosted very heavily this year, early in April, although lots of new growth has come back, but unfortunately quite often the new growth the replacement growth doesn't have flower buds on it, so I'm still hoping we might see some flower buds this year in June, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Carrying along further, this is my Inground citrus. This one is a Myers lemon. It's been in the ground for at least 3 years now. Although it doesn't particularly like being outside all year round, it is surviving the winter so far and should flower this year, although so far the fruits have only been tiny on it. First of my blueberries, got plenty of fruit set on it now. Still got some flowers on it. That's the mid-season one. Next to it we've got a pineapple guava or feijoa. This one is Triumph. This is starting into growth now. No, sorry, this one's Mammoth. Try not to get my pineapple guavas mixed up. This variety is Mammoth. Got new growth showing on it at the beginning of May. Theoretically should have flowers on it by the beginning of July. Now the light's gone down, it's hard to get the camera to focus, unfortunately, which is always a bit frustrating. Behind that we have a later season blueberry. That one's just coming into flower, hasn't really set any fruits yet. I think that one is Jersey. The first one which I looked at, which I forgot to mention the name, was Chandler, and this one, which is the supposed to be the earlier season one, is Darrow. Got lots of fruits on it now. Next to it is a Seedling pineapple guava. This is an unnamed variety, produces very small round fruits, and I've got it more because it's the very first one I ever got before I could get named varieties, and also it's a good cross pollinator for the others. Behind that I have got an Inground seedling persimmon. Probably a waste of time having it in there because it's not going to fruit. Excuse me, it's not likely to fruit. Did have a couple of tiny embryo flowers on it last year, so I'm thinking it'll get a few this year. The interesting thing is it doesn't seem to suffer from the cold like the pot grown ones. It hasn't had any dieback on it at all this year, and some of the growth is sort of 3 or 4 inches long, so it would be interesting to see if it get any flowers on it. It's supposed to be a seedling Asian persimmon, so one of the khaki varieties, but being as it's seed grown, it's as likely to be male as anything else. Continuing around, behind there, deciduous plant is Szechuan pinia, just coming into growth there. That's purely for ornamental purposes. And on the fence behind, I forgot to mention, I've got an ornamental passion fruit vine that looks, it will have died back a fair bit in winter. This variety is amethyst, and it does suffer dieback, but it should shoot out again fairly soon, and I'll probably cut it back a bit if I can encourage new growth. I've got an Inground unnamed pomegranate here, probably a seed grown one. I think it came from Bernkoos Nurseries. It's not a named variety, but being the Inground one seems to do best of all of my pomegranates, and will no doubt eventually be the one that produces the flowers better than the ones I've got in pots. Behind it I've got a named grafted American Pawpaw. Never really liked this position. It's a sunflower, the variety is sunflower, never done very well. But there we go, that's what happens sometimes with these plants, you don't find the right position for them. Behind it I've got a climber, which the name escapes me, on the wall. That's just a trumpet vine, a campsis, that's it, it's a campsis that's coming into growth now. We've got a buddleia, a butterfly bush, which I have to attract the bees and butterflies to the garden. In front of that I've got a bottle brush, or callistemon, which I cut back really heavily last year, and this has bounced back very well, but because I cut it back so hard I may not get any flowers on it. Next to the bottle brush is my Triumph Feijoa, or pineapple guava. It's now starting to put new growth on it, so again I'm hoping, this one fruited for me last year, so I'm hoping to have plenty of fruits this year. Next to that I've got my Inground unnamed seedling Pawpaw, which did produce its first fruits last year, and they were really quite pleasant. I only had 2 or 3, but they were actually better, I would say, than the fruits on my named variety that produced some fruits. Now I've no idea if it's going to set any fruits this year. Where I've pulled that flower off there, these here would be the embryo fruits, but you can't tell at this stage if they're going to set or drop off. But I have been trying to cross-pollinate it with the Prima, so there is a possibility that might be some fruit set on it, and they'll tend to be better quality fruits because they're on a bigger tree. Moving round to my next plants, I've got a goji berry there in a pot, and a couple of figs, which are actually Adriatic, not Asiatic. I don't know why I wrote Asiatic on them. I've got an Inground yuzu here, which looks fine. It's done well over winter. I've got at the front here we've got another Chilean guava. This is Pawpaw. Hopefully it's going to give me some flowers and fruits this year. Next to it is one of my honeyberries. Seems to have plenty of berries developing on it, and there's another one behind it, although that one didn't seem to produce any flowers or fruits this year. Behind that we have got, I can't remember, I'll have to look at the label. mine's completely blanked on what that is now. Terrible really, I should be able to remember these plants, but I've got so many I just can't remember them all. I know it's an evergreen member of the myrtle family, but I forget the name at the moment. Now if we can walk over the back here without falling over. This is my experimental Inground strawberry guava, or it might be the yellow cherry guava. As you can see, it's fairly lacking in leaves, and the leaves on it don't look very promising. However, it does look to me as if it's starting, the buds, the growth buds on it are starting to swell, so it's looking quite promising. Now we're into May, there's no risk of probably any more frosts now for the next, certainly not for the next 10 days, so I'm hoping this is going to recover quite well as the weather gets warmer. Had a couple of tropical passion fruits in the grounds as an experiment over winter. This one is tripartita, totally died as far as I can see, but the one next to it, Edulis, I managed to get these frost cloths over it, and the stems at the base look quite green actually, so I'm hopeful that might recover. But the one that really excites me is if this strawberry guava regenerates and gives me flowers and potentially fruits this year. So let's walk around here quickly. I'm not going to go, it's a bit of a job getting around some of these plants. This is one of my persimmons. This is Hanafuyu, allegedly. Hasn't taken much cold damage this year, and you can see it's coming into growth now. Next to it, I've got my Moldovan pink mulberry that's coming into growth. On my left here is a very dead-looking pomegranate tree. This is Mulberry, which unfortunately suffered serious dieback. Now, I don't know what killed it. It might have been too wet. I mean, there's some green on the trunk down here. The good news is it's almost certainly grown from cuttings, which means that if it shoots from lower down on the stem, it's fine. It's just going to be more of a bush shape. And certainly I can see signs of growth at the base. So at the very least, I'll have a bush of that variety. In the corner, we've got my Shinziki Asian pear. Won't get too close, but you can probably see it has got embryo fruit set on it. Here, sorry, I said this was a Moldovan pink, and this one actually is the Illinois everbearing here. And I realise that now it's coming into good growth, because the one on my right here is actually the Moldovan pink, and that's coming out into growth as well. At the back we've got my Hong Li Asian pear. Don't know if it's going to set any fruits yet, remains to be seen. And if I can just squeeze around the gaps here. This is my new Asian pear I got this year. This is Kumoy. This is a Kumoy, and actually it's at the moment set 2 fruits on it. I'm not necessarily expecting them to stay because it's the first year I've had it. But nevertheless it looks quite good. Sneaking around the back here, this is a Cornice Cuza. I'm going to revisit this plant here because I need to know the name of it for people who are interested. Luma apiculata. That's an evergreen member of the myrtle family. Should flower and produce berries which are probably just about edible. Yeah, so this is my Cornice Cuza, or Dogwood. Hasn't flowered yet. Possibly it will this year. I've repotted it, so we'll see what happens. One of my jujubes is still alive. This is a Lee. And you can probably just see the green buds starting to develop on the stems, and I've repotted it, so I'm hoping it's going to recover. I've lost 2 at the moment, one Lee and one Lang. However, as I've got various suckers that have come up from jujubes, so theoretically in the future I could regraft onto the suckers so I can multiply the varieties again. Let's just head round the back here. And that's my other jujube there, and that one is still alive, and that is Lang. And you can see that starts to come into growth. I've had plenty of flowers on my Prima Pawpaw, which I've repotted only a month or so ago. Doesn't seem to have affected the flowering, and I have been trying to hand pollinate them, so I'm hoping to get some fruits on it this year. And the one in front is the Pennsylvania Golden that I only potted a week or so ago, and you can see the flowers are still looking okay on this. Notice it's got some scale insects on it which I hadn't spotted before, so I think we'll rub those off. This is ongoing maintenance on these plants when you walk around the garden. I didn't know scale were a problem on Pawpaw, but obviously they are. I'm not going to go through all the persimmon varieties because the video will drag on for too long. We're up to 13 minutes already, but most of the persimmons I've got here took bad frost damage beginning of April, because as usual they bud out a bit too early. However, you can see that they've got lots of recovery buds on them, so some of the stems that hadn't come out earlier in the year, didn't come out earlier in April, have come out and they're not got any problems, but all these ones that got frosted, you can see have got plenty of new buds coming on them. Now, quick look at some of my other more unusual plants. This one is the this is a Szechuan pepper tree, which is can't remember, something like Xantholium bungianum, far too complicated to remember. We've got a Japanese raisin tree here. Again, got some frost damage early in April, but seems to have recovered quite nicely. Got quite a range, as you can see, of persimmons here. I think in total I've still got about 17 or 18 alive, and they're looking quite promising now. This is a Tipo. I've got a Fuyu there, quite a few American ones, and they all look as if they're recovering now. Another mulberry here. This particular one is Carmen, I think. Yeah, that's Carmen. Again, all the early buds took frost damage, but you can see lots of new buds coming out now, so that's recovering quite nicely. I've got a Che fruit here, which is Chinese mulberry. Here we've got a goji berry, had some flowers on it last year. I've got various assorted young figs here that I've had for about a year at the front, and there's another pawpaw which I hope's going to recover. That's a grafted KSU Atwood, has got some signs of life on it, so I need to try and get that going this year. My larger fig trees at the back which have yet to be repotted. On the fence there's a chocolate vine, a Kiwi Berry. Now I've got various named guavas on this side. I'm not going to run through all the names of them, but I've got about another 4 or 5 named varieties of guava, plus two on the decked area, which I'm going to bring down here and repot them soon. This is the weediest looking one. It really looked very sparse when I got it, and it's never picked up well, so I think that's due for a repot. This is a medlar, which seems to be getting plenty of flower buds on it, so I'm hoping to have some decent flowering display on it this year. One of my, I don't know why, but I'm having a lot of trouble with my loquats. Perhaps a loquat expert will know the answer, but this one is Oliver. They're grafted onto a quince rootstock, and I keep getting serious stem sty back on it, and I'm not sure. It's not cold. I really don't know if it's caused by underwatering, overwatering, too much fertiliser, too little fertiliser, but it still keeps getting all these new shoots, and the leaves just dry up. Whether or not it's got a virus of some sort, I don't know. There's another Chilean guava there. I had a butterball as well which died, unfortunately. I've got a Calicanthus there coming out, which is purely for ornamental reasons, and 2 more pineapple guavas at the back, which are another Mammoth and another Triumph. Got my donut or Saturn peach here. Nectarine, I should say. That's a flat nectarine. Didn't do anything last year, so I'm going to have to feed that like mad this year to see if I can get it to grow properly. And next to it is another mulberry, which is a Morus nigra. This is Repsime. It's the only Morus nigra that I've got, so that's a black bulb mulberry. And as you can see, I've got the same problem with my other loquat. It's got this bizarre curling and drying out to the leaves on almost all the shoots, so I really don't know if it's a virus or a water problem or something wrong with the soil and the pot's the wrong soil. So I'm going to have to investigate that a little bit further, because I didn't want to lose them. That's a Mrs. Cook's, and that's also a grafted one, but I didn't think there'd be a problem because they were grafted obviously onto quinces. But it is frustrating because this damage to the leaves is obviously stopping the plants grow properly, and therefore they're not getting up to a fruiting state. Final border, I've got a variegated rhododendron. I haven't covered every plant in here, but I'm just running through the ones of main interest to people. And I've finally got my largest fig, which is an Inground one, which is was bought as a Rouge de Bordeaux, but it isn't a Rouge de Bordeaux. I think it's a Long Du. And it has had some frost damage on it this year, which got rid of most of the Braber figs. However, there are a couple that appear to have survived and look quite healthy, so with any luck it might produce half a dozen Brabers, and then I'll have to try and concentrate on main crop production. So anyway, that's as quick a tour as I can do the garden without running through every single plant, and I'll have missed one or two interesting ones out en route, but they'll appear in later tours anyway. I just wanted to cover the main things today. For anybody who sort of hasn't looked at my small garden space, you can see I've got a very compact garden, which is why most of the fruit trees are in pots, because it means I can move them around as they grow, or if any get damaged or frosted or die, it's easy enough to move them to another location. So thanks for watching the video, much appreciate it. Please give me a thumbs up. You can ask any questions and I'll try and answer them if I can. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already and you think I'm growing anything that might be of interest to you. Remember to click on the bell if you want updates on new videos as they come out. I'll catch up with you on the next normal video. Brett out for now.